It's not every day that a nation goes to war and loses. In fact, you could say it's pretty rare for a country to go to war against birds and lose. But that's exactly what happened in Western Australia in 1930 to during the Great Emu War. After World War I, many Australian soldiers returned home and took up farming, an occupation just as dangerous as it turns out. See, after the war, there was a massive influx of emus migrating into the farming areas. And these birds weren't just passing through. No, they stayed and they ate and they multiplied. Soon there were about 20,000 emus in the region, trampling their crops and gobbling up their valuable wheat. The farmers were understandably pretty pissed. So they contacted the government and demanded military intervention. And well, the government was in a bit of a political pickle. They didn't want to send in the army and have them get wiped out by a bunch of birds. But they also didn't want to upset the farmers, so they sent in the army. And so began the Great Emu War, a 3-day battle between Australian soldiers and, well, emus. To be fair, this wasn't like any other war. It wasn't like the soldiers had to sneak through the jungle or rappel down mountains or anything. Instead, they were sent out into fields to shoot birds. Sounds easy, right? Well, yeah, it should be. But these weren't your average birds. Oh no, these emus were fast. Too fast for the soldiers to hit them with their rifles. They were also just kind of mean, kicking and biting the soldiers who got too close. And perhaps most surprising, they were tough. The soldiers shot at them hundreds of times, and it took about 4 bullets to take one emu down. And even then, they often just kind of hobbled away, wounded but alive. What's more, the emus were just way too scattered to pin down. At one point, Major Meredith, who was in charge of the military operation, said that his men couldn't even find enough birds to shoot. "It's bloody frustrating," he said. "You can't fight when there's only 2 of them to every square yard." To make matters worse, the emus seemed to be enjoying themselves, gobbling and making what Meredith called mocking calls. "They were laughing at us," he said. In the end, the soldiers failed to kill anywhere near enough emus to satisfy the farmers, and the whole thing turned into a bit of an embarrassment for the Australian military. After 3 days of shooting, the soldiers packed up and headed home. The emus, meanwhile, got to keep on gobbling. As far as casualties go, we don't know exactly how many emus were killed, but it was probably only a few hundred out of thousands. And that's small consolation considering the amount of damage the birds did to the crops. These days, the Great Emu War is remembered as one of the funniest and weirdest episodes in Australian history. You can even visit the town of Campion, which was at the center of the emu conflict, and see things like the Emu War Memorial and the Emu 81, which commemorates the alleged death of an emu killed by an Australian soldier. Of course, there's absolutely no evidence that any of this actually happened. But whether it did or didn't, the story of the Great Emu War has become a bit of a national joke, a lighthearted example of the times that nature has outsmarted humankind. I'm the host,